What's up, guys? Daily Crypto here. The video I'm about to show you was recorded live September 5th, 3 a.m. UTC. If you want to get it on the next webinar, it's going to be presented live. It's going to be about 15 hours from now. The link's going to be in the description, so be sure to check that out. And if you're watching this after that webinar date, you can become a student to keep up with future webinar event times. So without further ado, here's the presentation. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's Edward here with Crypto University. So this is a odd event time. We tried to tailor this a little bit to our Australian audience tonight. Thank you to everyone who has made it out. We know it's a strange event time. It is 10 p.m. for me here in the States, over in Texas, United States. And for our host is about 5 a.m. So we got a little bit of time differences around the world, but that's all right. We're going to be here today talking about trading ranges. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to talk to you about trend lines just a little bit. We've talked about trend lines before in the past, so I'm just going to go briefly over them and how we can establish them to identify trading ranges. Then I'll show you some of my trading ranges that I have for Bitcoin. We can look at how opportunities flow between them. Unfortunately, the presentation will be only an hour long, so it won't be possible to see all of the market movements within a real trading range, but I will show you some of the past examples that I've seen recently with a chain link trade that I did share to the group that I was pretty confident about. I'll show you why I thought I was confident in that based upon the market structure and how the breakout looked as though it was going to be occurring based off of trend lines, again, because I looked at the trading ranges and I was able to identify 3 targets shared with the group. All of them were filled. And then I'll take a look at another one that I recently took that I did not share with the group, show you how I identified that trading range, how I managed the risk to reward ratio on the trading range to stay within proper guidelines. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll be using TradingView for this presentation. So we're not going to be looking at the 3 commas map. I'll go ahead and use my TradingView because this is where I have all of my long-term maps. Usually whenever I'm sharing with you guys, it's on 3 commas because I don't have a lot of long-term mapping there because that is where I do the trading. So here we'll take a look at a Bitcoin chart. Now this is going to be on Bittrex, so liquidity is a little bit different, but the price ranges are about the same. There's going to be a little bit of slippage, but you'll be able to identify the same trend across multiple charts. And the reason we're looking at Bittrex first is because I do have multiple Bitcoin charts here, and all of them have a little bit of different information, or they're charted a little bit differently. So we'll take a look at all of these, one by one. I want to start with the most simple one, which I believe is this one. Yeah. So this is my most simple chart. I'm going to be looking at this first. Let me turn off my EMAs here. Okay, perfect. So we can just see market structure now. We're just basically looking at market structure, identifying trend lines. Essentially what you want to do to identify an area of support, you're going to make a horizontal line. This is going to be horizontal support. You could do the same for resistance. I didn't chart resistance on this map, but if I wanted to chart some, I'd say it'd be around this area here. But we can look into a different map for that. For those who aren't familiar with trend lines, I just wanted you to see basic trend line structure. And you can see how a trend behaves while it does act within the trend lines. If it's disrespected, it will have a retest, right? So that's a breakout, which is a false breakout in this instance. So we had a retest and it proved true. And we had a real breakout. Then we formed this upward channel, right? So here we have formed this channel by drawing these 2 lines. And this is the daily time frame. So of course, if we look at this on a smaller time frame, we'll be able to connect the picture and find opportunities as well. So from projecting from these 2 highs only, we would, before even seeing any of this data, we would be able to have projected these 2 lows and these 2 highs to find our trading channel. And this was a valid channel that we used to trade for quite some time. As you can see, these are all 4-hour candlesticks. So after we could identify this channel, we have an upper range here, and then we had a lower range after these 2 lows connected. So, oh, I missed my edit tool. So there's 4 days back to the top of the channel where you can see a retest. It tests again and comes back down after 8 days. Comes back down after 13 days and retests here, and it's respected, right? So there's plenty of range here. You could take a long on this opportunity, as you could see another trend line forming down, breaking out, right? So this is where you can see a trading range, right? This is the start of a trading range. Before we had this orange line here, right? Let me see if I can hide this because we hadn't connected these highs. All right, well, I'll just go ahead and delete it real quick. So we hadn't connected these highs yet. So this was the, we were looking to get back to the high of this channel, right? But as we could see, we did not, and we actually fell down. So there was a buying opportunity here, which was profitable, but we saw a fallout, right? So then here was the retest. So now we're exploring off into these, this area, right? It seems to be uncharted because we don't have any more trend lines available, right? I just had that resistance line where the cursor was, but now you can't see any trading ranges because we don't have any more trend lines. So sure, this is an easy map to follow whenever you look at it like this, right? And you can say, oh, well, you know, it seems easy enough to trade, but where are your real trading ranges? Because these are very large spreads, right? Even on the 4-hour time frame, this, if you're lucky enough to get in here, that's a wonderful profitability, 20%. So these are large spreads. If you're the average day trader, you're usually looking to be in and out within, you know, a few minutes, even within to a few hours. Like, typically don't want to go to sleep on a trade. So if you want to look for those trading ranges, you're going to have a lot more trend lines. So I'll go back to the daily time frame and then I'll look at my next chart. So we can see this one kind of makes sense pretty easily, right? You know, there's nothing epic going on here. And when you get into something like this is where things could seem confusing to a lot of people. I show this to people, and they're like, "Man, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what I don't know how to read this." And it could look like gibberish to some people, especially whenever we were trending in this area before we had this outbreak here. This was very confusing even to me. These trading ranges that we had in here were very small, and I'll open them up and show them to you. But here, even on the daily, you can see how it's important to connect trading ranges, or I'm sorry, you can see how it's important to connect high points to high points and project them down so you can have your trading ranges. Because even these two high points we connected here were used as resistance here in this candle and in this candle. So you never know which one of these trend lines is going to be the one that's respected in the future. And with all this sideways action, it presents a lot of trading ranges. So let's go ahead and look at the 1 hour. Okay, so this is where we currently are. I can make an example of where we currently are. As you can see, I projected this downtrend line connecting these two highs on the hourly. And this uptrend line was connected from these two low points. So this is our trading range now, right? We can see that if this is respected here, and we go down, then we can see that we have a short trading range upwards of about 2.96%, right? If we experience the rejection here and it holds true, then we can come down to this other trend line that we have mapped. I'm not sure where it came from, but it's come from once upon a time. Okay, so it's come from these two high points here. Connecting these two high points projects this downtrend line, which gives us our trading range, right? So here you can see that it was used as resistance, then poked its head through to a previous range, couldn't get above, couldn't maintain, poked back down, right? So that's just an example of where we are now. If it breaks up and breaks true, then we can expect a profitable range upwards of these targets, right? So if we're going to set up a trade here, we can see that this is all the way upwards of 5%, 5.33%. And don't try to take any of these trades that I'm talking about during the presentation, because I don't know which one of these are going to come true, and I'm just showing you how a trading range works. So this is actually, if we were looking at Bitcoin, we can see this would be our two trading ranges. So I'm just going to set up a mock position real quick. So let's not attempt this trade. But let's just say if we wanted to take a scalp, we can set from, if we're going to go in at market price, we'll enter this at market price. We can set our stop loss to just below this candle. So if it falls below this previous bullish candle, then we're going to want to get out. So it's 1.31. Let's try to at least be 1-to-1 here, which would take us to the top of that channel. So there you can see we'd set up a long position, right? Trying to use a
proper risk to reward ratio, at least maintaining 1-to-1. Because if we get stopped out here, then we know the trade's no good, and we're probably going to look to see the bottom of this channel. But if we do hit this take profit target, we don't have to exit the trade completely. We could try to reach up all the way to this range here, right? If the candles continue to bounce up, find respect here, and keep going up, right? So we can chase this all the way up into the next area of profitability. And even then, if we reach that target, so the next one would be a very far distance. If we do hit that take profit target, we'd be looking at another 9% to our next one. So raising that up would give us a total of 16%. So you could turn this into a really profitable position if you could chase it up with your stop loss and make use of the trading ranges. So let's just take a look now. If we were going to be trying to do a short, right, it'd probably be in the opposite direction. Let me delete this. Okay, so if we want to take a market entry right here, let's say we're gonna use this as a stop loss, because obviously if we break above this, green line here, and we get over this line, I'm pretty confident that this is going to be going upwards. So I want to get out of this position, just for example, right? I'm not actually confident. I'm just saying if I wanted to set up this short. So that's at least 1-to-1, where we could target previous support would be around this range. So reducing it to that range would set you just below 1-to-1. So you probably want to target to the end of this short channel here, which would give you a little bit over 1-to-2. And then you can see at your next short range, if you extended some of these lines, which I'm not going to try to blindly extend it right now. But as you can see, it's been connected from these points. So let me just go ahead and try to extend it. You never know which one's going to be the one. So I try not to have too many lines going all over the place. As you can see, once I realize they're not going to be used again, I kind of have them cleared out to make use for other charting. So then if this is successful, we can chase this short down to the next range here, and we can see it's possible to get 6.5. If we were to enter right now in market price, we can chase either one of these directions depending upon how it goes, right? Because there is a price conflict right here upon this area. So we got fortunate enough to see what a price conflict looks like, and nobody can predict the future, and no one can see what's going to happen here. So that's why you have to place your wager beforehand, measure your trading ranges, and see, okay, what am I comfortable losing and how far do I think it can go? As opposed to if we were looking at this previous chart here, I mean, you could obviously do some TA on it quickly. Here I can see a downtrend line. Here I can see an uptrend line, So you can do some TA on it quickly, but it helps to have these charts handy, and it helps to have them mapped out, right? Because this isn't something that this isn't something I was working with, for 10 minutes. I'm sorry, my chart's not loading the graph right now. Can you hear me still?
Yes, we can hear you.
My chart's not loading my data. I'm sorry, guys. This hasn't happened before. Okay, I don't know what's happened, but it seems like all my chart data is no longer there. Okay, maybe let's see if it comes back for this one. Okay, I don't know what that was about. That was a glitch. You all saw that. Spam on TradingView. Okay, my apologies for that. So basically what I was trying to say, let me break back down into the 1 hour. So I'll backtrack into BTC for a little bit here. As we can see, I'll try to talk through it quickly as I'm walking through it. So here was a trade I tried to share, and I was projecting that if we bounce here, it could go to this or this. It got rejected here and fell back down. So even in this, you can still see that there are some areas of profitability, 1.77. Some guys are not using leverage, and we're just doing basic spot trading, and that's still profitable. 1%, a generous percent return of 1.67% per day is very generous and doable. So even without futures, you can still make a living if you're not ready for futures, or if you're still just trying to take small steps into the trading game before you can really get into investing a lot of money, right? Because if you don't know what you're doing, more than likely you're going to end up losing more money than what's profitable. So here are some trading ranges that you can see. And now I'm getting into that area of, so this was the high of the consolidation range that we were experiencing before August rupture, right? We had that big upwards price movement in August that got us out of that consolidated trading range. So now you'll be able to see a lot of potential price ranges here. Like right here, I remember trading in this time, my feelings during this, I was like, there's so many lines here. And it was like, they weren't being used at all. None of them were being used. And I was like, I was getting ready to get rid of some of them. See, and I even projected a new one here. I was like, all right, because I thought that this trading range was way too large. I was like, okay, there's no way that's a real trading range. So I projected this one here. I used these two highs to connect and that low. And here I was waiting for this turnaround, and then there was an epic turnaround before we got to this purple bar, which on the daily time frame, because I mapped out this coin, because I've been studying it for a long time, because I'm not just jumping into a lot of different projects. I'm familiar with market structure, right? Because I have been mapping the coin for a while, and I backtrack the data. So even if you're a new trader and you're barely getting into this, it's important to understand the assets that you're trading in the history. So anyway, continuing forward, I wasn't expecting any of these lines to be used anywhere, and then this big jump occurred, and it popped through almost immediately. This was another upward line, and then tested here almost twice, and came back in. So then I was able to project this green line off of these two lows, and I projected this green line off of this low and this low, which gave me this trading range here. And it shot straight through after I projected this one. I was like, okay, well, maybe it's going to get rejected here and fall back down to this green line. I was expecting it to do something like this. After it came here, I was expecting it to come here and then come back down, right, to this green line here. That's what I was expecting. But it went against that and popped through these other trading ranges, right? And even used this here as a retest. This was obviously a clean entry. And let me tell you why. Because we have this huge gradient of a slope on this trading range here. And then this was a previous trend line from somewhere, once upon a time. So even way back when, connecting these two highs. A high from June 29th and a high from July 4th. So connecting those highs way back there gave us this perfect entry on July 25th. So all that time later, right? And let me break it down a little bit better for you and tell you why. So again, we have this green upward trend line here. And then we have this red downward trend line. And we have this bullish pin bar, right? It's red. It's approaching resistance, right? So this was broken. This was broken. We have a little bit of divergence here. And then we have support. So we were able to identify this upward support line, and they're different colors. So that way you could see all three of these lines intersect right here. Two support lines and a downward line. So this is going to, obviously, as it was broken for resistance, is going to be tested as support naturally. So it tested three lines. Oops, sorry, I fat fingered. It tested three lines right here. So that was beautiful. And then once it broke out here, this candlestick just shot straight above that resistance line. And we knew at that point we were going somewhere, right? And then what do we have? Up into the next trading range. Absolutely blasted through because there was nothing stopping it, right? Here we have all these lines. So we see a lot of bouncing around. And then we had this green line from back here, connecting these two lows, right? Connecting a low from July 8th and a low from, those are both from the same day, just within a few hours, right? So we connected those two lows, and it looked like it wasn't going to be used, right? You see, it was broken, and then it didn't exist. Didn't exist until came back over here, and we shot through this point, and it eventually had to come back down. And then you see some tests. Eventually, this candle shot through, proving that we weren't going to, this was disrespected. So respect, disrespected. And then we come down into this low. And as I can observe new lows, obviously I create new lines so that way I can develop into the future. and see new trading ranges. So that's a fine opportunity. And as you can see, this doesn't occur always. Not every trading range is perfect. And you don't have all of them until, they run into new lines. Like here, this was only valid for 3 days. This was only valid for 3 days. Haven't seen it since. So some of them are not good forever. That's why I remember someone had asked me why I don't use raise for everything, because, and your trading view might look a little bit different because I'm on my iPad right here. I'm on mobile presenting this to you. So your trading view might look a little bit different, but essentially all the tools are the same. So we have the ray here, which if you use a ray, you can project the line and you can see those 2 dots will give you the slope of the ray and it'll go indefinitely. So sometimes I use those because, sometimes the trend lines are major, like if they're off daily lows, those are typically like a daily low or a daily high if I'm connecting them. Those are typically done with rays because they might be respected at a day later. So the hourlies, a bunch of hourly candlesticks do group together and make a day. So on the daily time frame or anywhere on the daily where you might see the bottom of this candlestick, this is the bottom of 1 day's worth of candle. So this, could be essentially a major trend line. So which, as you can see, I've used a ray to connect. But anyway, that's why I don't use rays for everything, as you can just use a regular trend line for some things to connect on the short term, right? If you don't want it to project, go in the future and get into your way, although it could be used, even right here, short term. I didn't project it, but as you can see, there's one right there. Extending up forward too. I didn't draw this one, but it does project upwards for some time. I'm going to delete it because I didn't have it there. So even that rather large channel now, I don't know if you could see it, but this was actually the uptrend that we were just looking at. So let me come back down to this one. See, so maybe if you can condition your eyes now to be looking for this larger channel, sorry. So if you can condition your eyes to be looking for this larger channel here, and then I'll pull up that other one with all the lines. So it might be possible now for you to still see that channel and be able to make use of like, okay, wow, we do have a lot of smaller downtrend lines in different areas. And there's an obvious one here. I didn't put a downtrend line there. But as you can see, we still have the larger uptrend. And then we have all of these different trading ranges within that uptrend. So that is where you can actually find the opportunities to make trades on smaller windows, right? On smaller time frames. Because if you're looking at the daily time frame, like I said, some of these can be very large. Some of these spreads can be very large. And as you can see, it even looks absurd sometimes whenever you zoom out in that manner. But, they do obviously present themselves. Here you can see, for example, it's not very messy. There's not a lot of lines because this is, a very obvious trend. If you wanted to, if I look at this on the hourly, I'll have to backtrack a bit, but you can see here that this is respected multiple times. So, I mean, shorting from this was easy money, right? Until it gets broken. This candle pierces up and on the daily. So we have a daily candle pierce that, and then it's like, oh, all right, momentum changes. Now we can't confidently short this line anymore. If it continued to be respected, we could keep shorting for as long as it's respected. But here it's broken. So we're like, all right, why is it broken? Because we have, or why is it stopping here? Because we have this trend line from back here connecting these lows before the super cycle got started, right? So then we can see that runs into conflict here. And then we break out of that downtrend line. So the easy money stops flowing. And then the daily's conflict starts. Okay, so only these candles existed. So we had to put this line up. And only these candles existed. So we had to put this line up. So this broke down. Then we were shorting. Then it broke up. So then we were longing. And then we find out, okay, looks like we're in a consolidation range because we can't break this point, can't break this point. And it actually comes back from a point over here. So this was a resistance point, right? And then this candle shot through. Resistance point, this shot through, boom. So now we can project that. All right. to this high here. All right, so now we have a horizontal trading range. So this was our larger trading range, and we had to find opportunities on the smaller time frames within these rates. All right, so now let me take a look at our chain link trade. I want to talk a little bit about this, why I thought this was going to be a good position. So I initially charted this on my phone, so that's why the layout of this looks a little bit different. But as you can see here, I got the timestamp on it. There's no way that this is a lie. I had these trading ranges on Chainlink, and I'll take you to my Chainlink map in just a second. So I had these trading ranges identified with these trend lines, horizontal support, resistance, etc. Everything we were just talking about. And I could see this wedge on the 4-hour time frame. I'm like, oh man, this wedge is going to be really nice, right? And I predicted initially this very small window here. This is a 1-to-1. So this entry, I don't have it on my chart anymore because I don't want this information clogging my view, right? Because it's very large. So I'm zooming in here to show you. But we can still go back to that chart. You can still see this layout here, and I'll show it to you there. But what I was looking at, like, okay, if I enter now at market price, it's going to be a little bit risky because if this doesn't break out, obviously we're going a long ways down. So let me just put my stop loss below this. This was an area of support that I identified, and obviously I saw this candlestick dip down below it. So I put my stop loss just below that from a market price. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to enter at market price, got to at least make 1-to-1. So we'll set that up as TP1. Then I set up my other take profit goals off of this outbreak. So I was basing these take profit goals off of this outbreak. Okay, this is obviously an area of resistance as price couldn't break out there. So I want to set it just below that, right? And I'm already 1-to-1 at this first point. So this is all free money afterwards. I can move my stop loss up and make sure that I get stopped out for profits if this comes out and comes for a retest. That was my thinking here. If it comes up, pops above, then we can move our stop loss there, at least get stopped out for profits, right? But if it keeps going, then we're going to target this. And my overall final take profit target here was along this white trending line, or this white trend line. Like, okay, if it breaks up there, then we have that trading range. And then I zoom in a little bit more so it's a little bit clear here. As you can see, this was where it popped just below, and I had identified this, and I even sent this to the group, to our private Telegram group. So, no one can say that we're not doing things there, because I try to send trades whenever I'm very confident in them. And this trading range to me stood out very clear, plain as day. I was like, all right, there's no way that anyone should miss this. So let me take you to that now. Yeah, so here we are on the daily, right? And this, in the daily time frame speaks loud and clear. We could see that this was a wedge formed by connecting these two high points. This is a high point. This is a high point. Price has a swing high, then it swings low, and it touched this area of previous, support resistance, right? And I had charted this from once upon a time, way back when. So I knew that this was valid. I absolutely knew it was valid. I knew it was valid because I've been charting this coin. And, if everyone knows me, they always ask, I'll say my big five are the same every single time. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Chainlink, and Theta, right? I chart those the most. So, I'm not fibbing to anyone. If you really chart something a lot, then you know the trading ranges and you know what's possible to you, what's achievable, where you can find those opportunities. So here you can see that it did break out. I think there actually is my initial trade. Actually, let me see if I didn't close that one out. Cool. So you can see there was the initial position. Nice. I'm glad that's still there. I took off the other percentages there. As you can see, we did reach them. That was the initial position, 1-to-1. It was achieved. And then we came up to this red line, had a resistance here, came back down. Ultimately, it was broken. It was broken through, and then we came up, had a little bit of resistance along that trading range right there. So it swings, back and forth as it strays through. Then we have a couple tests. So now we're here. Looks like it is tested negative. So, based off of, without having any indicators or whatever, because I do have other indicators that I like to use, here's the MACD, RSI, and ADX. Those are my favorite. So I do have different things that I like to use to determine where I think an asset might go. This actually kind of looks like hidden bullish divergence, as this is sloping upwards. Sloping up. And then we have this sloping down, right? So that's actually, that could be a sign of hidden bullish divergence. We have a MACD cross coming. So it looks like, this could flip bullish, but I'm not looking at that right now. I'm looking at trading ranges. So if I wanted to go market price on here, just for example, I can go, I'll show you a quick long and short. And again, don't try to take any of these trades. We're just looking at trading ranges here and how to identify the range and use a proper risk to reward ratio. So let's go ahead and put a long in here. If we wanted to put a long scalp, we think we can get 1.69% because that would be back to the top of that white line, maybe just a little below 1.5%. So let's see if we can get a 1.5% stop loss would be great. So I'd say just below this candle, because if we break out of this upward green trend line, right, we found support a few times. If we break below that, that's not a good sign. And then if we fall below this previous swing low, then that's a terrible sign. So we'll put it just below that swing low. We can go 1% to keep it a profitable long. So you could set up a long scalp in this scenario, or if you wanted to set up a short, let me go ahead and remove that. Oops. If you wanted to set up a short position and you wanted to go market price, okay, well, let's say, I want to test this outbreak here. And again, we'll use that same white line because, that's a valid trading range. So if price goes up this way and we took a short, we'll say, all right, I want to get stopped out there because if price breaks above this, more than likely it'll continue upwards. But now I have this short trading range and I can see here, this could easily, where we had just placed that stop loss, could easily be our target. But if we want to try to maintain 1-to-1, we can put it so that previous swing low is right there. As you can see, this is the previous swing low. So that would set up our 1-to-1 for a short. And then if this is achieved, obviously we could ride this down to a later range. That would give us a whopping 10% if that short fell through. With the momentum that Chainlink has now, I don't think that would actually occur. It's possible. Anything's possible. But that would mean that price would come back to here for a retest, putting it around $26. So that's just an example of how you would set up a long versus a short. And then obviously here, actually, we can see this is a valid downtrend. If anyone was thinking that before I drew it, kudos to you. All right. So there, now you can see, even if you wanted to set up that long that we had at first, you could set up long TP1 here and long TP2 here. Or if you want to set up a short, you don't want to go at market price. Let's say I want to set up my short, I think that this is the 1 hour time frame. So I think that if price comes here, it will be rejected again. And then I could set my short up, if I was using limit orders instead of market orders, I could set my short up here. Like, okay, if it breaks out, then I want out of the trade. And then obviously this was an achievable price. So we could set our limit order here at $30.16. So if we want to short this, then if it breaks out here, obviously we don't want to be involved anymore. And then if it gets rejected here, then this downtrend line might be valid and we can hang on to this short for later. So that's an example of how you can do a long and a short based upon, what other things might trigger your thought process to think, like I was just looking at these other indicators, whatever other indicators you like to use would trigger your thoughts to say, okay, how can I take a long or a short? And how can I manage my risk to reward? Should I even go in at the market price, or should I set a limit order and risk, possibly missing out on something that, that could be profitable? Sometimes missing out on something that could be profitable almost feels like a loss. So I'll show one more example of a recent trade that I was involved in, and then we can do some Q&A for the trading ranges. Only a couple of you guys here. All right, so this was a Filecoin trade that I was looking at, and I didn't share this one with anyone because I personally thought it was super risky. But it was a risk I was willing to take. As I always say, you shouldn't trade with any funds that you're willing to lose. So here, let me explain why this is super risky, but also why I thought it was going to work out, right? So basically, I had seen that the RSI was oversold. Obviously, the MACD is in a bullish trend, and the ADX is just kicking off. This, to me, was the most important factor. The ADX took a huge jump upward. So I knew that my timing was not going to be terrible, right? If the trend gets rejected, it's fine. I'll just get dropped out at the bottom of this channel somewhere. So my thinking was, okay, I'm going to put my stop loss just below this upwards trend line, right? As you can see, it's just out of the upwards trend line because that trend line was respected. You can't see the bottom of it in this screenshot, but it was a valid trend line. So I'm like, all right, if it breaks out below this trend line, I want to get out of the trade. And obviously this trend line is going up, right? So this is an upward ascending trend line. So even if it has a couple bounces below and I am in a negative trade, I have an opportunity for it to be profitable later on, depending upon how candlesticks react. So I was like, all right, if I could jump in right now, this might actually be very profitable. I could get in here and I'll set it up all the way to 1-to-1, right? So I can get out 89.70 and then also get out 76.67 if it goes in a loss. So here was that order, right? This was on Bybit. I did my TA first, and then I came and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna place the order now and we'll see what happens. We'll wait. I got a little bit nervous. I was watching the trade impatiently, as I don't like to fall asleep on a trade, but I actually did go to sleep on that trade. So I woke up. This is actually this morning. Woke up at 8:52 this morning. I was like, all right. So just because I'm not sharing my trades doesn't mean I'm not taking them. I just don't like to share things that I'm not confident with. So going forward, I took this trade. It was super risky. I woke up. I was in profits, but the amount of leverage that I had applied, I was happy with the profits. And sometimes, I always say, take profits. I'll tell everyone, if you message me in public or in private, I always tell you, you know what? It's never a bad idea to take profits. So that's what I did. I took profits. I closed my position. I don't have a screenshot of the closed position, but I closed right around here, and I did not fulfill the entire order. So I didn't do anything wrong, right? I didn't take a loss on the trade. And I stopped out. I closed for profits, but way before my projected range. And I got cold feet on the trade, right? I let my emotions get the best of me. I should have just left it be alone. Let me show you now what happened on Filecoin. If I would have just left my money in there, I closed the long to short. See, I reduced it because if I'm mapping something on TradingView, whenever I actually close my order or get filled, I'll adjust it so I could see this is the actual trade I took. Now, this is the time I got out from the time I entered. So that's how I can see in past trades that I've taken, right? And on what coin. So obviously, let me go back to that photo. You can see here, whenever I had initially set it up, it was $89.70, $89.70. So if I would have just stayed in that freaking trade, I would have got my take profit target. Like I said, but I got cold feet, and because obviously there wasn't another trading range close by, I had projected that from a high on the 4-hour chart. So I didn't have another trading range close by on this one because I'm not very familiar with Filecoin, but I did see that opportunity, and I was like, okay, I want to use this previous 4-hour resistance. So that's where I got that figure from, even though I didn't have a valid trading range. But as you can see, sometimes you need to trust yourself and just let things play out, because I could have had a lot more profits. And like I said, losing out on profits almost feels like, like you lost out on money, like taking a loss on a trade. But that's neither here nor there. So I showed you 2 examples. The chain link trade that I shared to the group, obviously I was very confident with, and it played out. We wrote it all the way. I told people, multiple times. I updated every time we were hit on the take profit goals. So that was a profitable trade. We were all very happy. This was also a profitable trade, but I didn't stick to my guidelines. If I would have just let my trade ride out instead of letting my emotions get the best of me, even still, to me, still happens. So I just trust your TA. Once you set it in, let it go. What I could have done was follow this up with a stop loss, but I had some other things to do today. So I wasn't going to be able to stare at this chart. So I was like, all right, just going to close it, get on with my day. But what I could have done was followed up with the stop loss. If I was following this trade, then obviously I could even still be involved in this trade and still have a lot of profits to write up. So that is 2 examples I got for you, and it worked out just about the time that I thought it would take to present that. So now I got quite a bit of time for question and answers from you guys, so we don't have to worry about missing out on anyone's question and answers.
Thanks for watching that presentation, guys. I hope it clears something up about trading ranges, and we've done a lot of webinars like this before in the past. In order to catch up with them and see what we've got going on at Crypto University, you can become a student in the link below. Happy trading.